for Jenny, will you? That's all I ask.
The end of the road is here, or is it just the beginning? Well, given the announcement of Season 2 being underway, I'd say that answers that in the literal sense, but what about this narrative and the journeys for both Maggie and Negan? Based on how this one concludes, it would appear as if there's no happy ending for anyone from this just yet, with both protagonists being backed into a corner after they just made peace with their plights, and are now more dependent on each other than ever before.
Damn, if that ain't the coolest thing I've ever heard in my life!
Just when I was left in a state of concern last week, given how last minute everything felt and how the balls began to fall in this juggling act, it seems my woes weren't necessary, because damn am I hooked and thirsty for Season 2.
Give me what I want. Give me what I want. You know what I want. Give me what I want, or I'm gonna continue to hurt people you love. Give me what I want.
We open on Ginny reuniting with Negan, who becomes frustrated with her being there, and after an entire sequence of Negan explaining why she shouldn't be in the city and pushes her to leave with Pearlie, Ginny plucks up the courage to say a few words, but this enrages Negan, who, to get her away from the city, confesses he murdered her father after he participated in the assault on Annie.
Excuse me, the fuck did you just say?
Ginny pushes him away as both Maggie and Pearlie spectate in shock, and before we cut to intro, Pearlie promises to get Ginny back to land. Following the credits, Maggie and Negan sit waiting for evidence of the Crow Art in the city, where Maggie opens up about a time that she too wanted to visit New York, calling back to Negan's story about the Statue of Liberty earlier in the season, and after they've had a brief bonding session, they see a car headed up through the city toward a billow of smoke in the distance, as seen in episode 1, that we cut to the pair arriving at, where Maggie is shown to be stalking Negan rather than walking with him, who becomes wary of her as they enter the docking station, and Negan quickly asks Maggie if she knew what Ginny was going to say to him, to which she offers a rather ominous response, and this clues Negan into what's truly going on here, and he proceeds to attack her and makes a quick getaway, with the pair winding up on a well-placed board that acts as a ring above a sea of walkers within the docking station, where they both duke it out briefly. Negan ends this by kicking Maggie off to a well-placed set of boxes below after she stabs him in the chest, and Negan deduces what the kid was going to tell him about the true situation of what the Croat has put Maggie in, and he concedes in this moment that rather than trying to kill her, he's done trying entirely. He knows who he is now, and he's not what she still believes he is, but understands that no matter how many excuses or apologies he offers, she'll never let go of the hatred she has for him.
Oh, I hate you.
And he tells her not to let it go, but that he'll still go through with the exchange for Herschel, and the Croat arrives to pick them up. And shortly after seeing Pearlie drop Ginny back at the bricks, we see the exchange go down, with Negan asking that Maggie look out for Ginny, and he wishes Herschel the best.
Yeah, live long and suck it!
And for the final time, we catch up with Pearlie returning to head office, where he offers a false accounting of his time in Manhattan, and the high-ranking fuckwads press for more information regarding the layout of the city and how their fuel situation works, threatening Pearlie's family in the process.
You dick!
Back to the widow and her son though, they return to the mainland too, where Herschel is cold towards his mother and accosts her for her continued obsession with Negan, as that is what has put strain between their relationship, and he states that he felt more comfortable in captivity than with her. This leaves Maggie stunned and holding back tears, clearly never realising what she's done to him. And we begin to close this chapter with Negan being brought before the Dama, who expresses her joy at the sight of him and tells him that the plan is for him to be reinstated as the oppressive figure he once was, and to unite the entire island under one faction. And before Negan can say no, she presents him with a box that inside holds a severed toe belonging to Herschel, that the Dama claims is now trusting in her following their time together, and that if Negan fails, she will continue to take pieces from him. And as we close out, Maggie simultaneously discovers drawings from the lad that depicts his surroundings in Manhattan and an image of the Dama, showing a connection between the pair that now presents a new threat for the duo.
This ass is mine!
Now, it's always difficult to assess a finale without casting your mind back throughout the entire season, and where I would have liked a little more time with certain scenes or conversations, like having the survivors fleshed out a little more and not just dumping them like last week's Taco Bell, Or given more time to Negan and Pauli's relationship here, I stand by my feelings on this series, and that is, this is peak Walking Dead material.
Oh, thank goodness.
This series truly is a 3-act, 6-part movie that just got its sequel confirmed, but as a self-contained story about two enemies engaging in a mutually beneficial but tenuous alliance to retrieve a kid and initially try to destroy a seemingly singular threat to Negan's past, and try and calm the waters once and for all, just became a story of resolve and a bizarre sense of loyalty and revelation. I have more questions coming out the back of this one, and I guess things for you to ponder on, my dear viewer, as we say goodbye to these two for now. But before I get to the curiosities plaguing my mind, I need to assess this episode for what we were given, both good and bad. Starting with the weaker elements from this, and I will preface this by saying that they aren't as harsh of a judgment as they were before I found out we were getting a season 2, but the big thing is not providing us any information regarding the interest in methane. Fuel resources, I can imagine, would be a hot commodity within an apocalypse, with the chance of seeing working electricity again, central heating and hot water being all merits for anybody in this world. But why is this the crux of the feud between the Dama and her forces against the New Babylon fucktards?
Give me what I want. Give me what I want. You know what I want. Give me what I want.
Alrighty then.
I want to assume this is just a simple game of Monopoly, and without any active government or law enforcements anymore, there's no jurisdiction anywhere, which leaves most places and people ripe for the taking. But when I went into the show, I was hoping to see a cathartic result for our two co-stars, not a war over fucking corn and corpses. Because honestly, the writing feels a little derivative of the all-out war storyline, in that we see what you got, and we want it. I just get a strange sense of deja vu here, and I'd like to believe they have a plan for this that will heighten the stakes all around, but I really don't need a repeat of the all-out war story. Then my last gripe with this was the way things fizzled out between Negan and Maggie. I can see the poetic justice here, with Negan choosing to be the bigger man rather than take Maggie out, as he knew it would destroy Hershel's chances of survival, but the climactic blowout between the two felt as though neither could be bothered anymore.
How long's he been at this? Too long. He's losing his touch.
The blood feud the pair have had has been put to the test throughout this little adventure, which proved they could trust each other, and as Negan states, they work incredibly well as a team, but seeing the history, the tension and context explode and boil over here was something I think the audience needed. But instead the fight was just an exhaustive display of two tired bodies determined to only see the worst in each other, except Negan has enough self-awareness to see that they aren't too dissimilar anymore, as they've both committed atrocities to get to where they are. However, physical displays of war aside, the psychology to this was fascinating, as Maggie struck what should have been a fatal blow, yet didn't see it through. She likely held back, realising he's still her best chance to get him back, but something I didn't realise before is that she is very much the Batman to his Joker, and at this point the pair really can't be without each other. Adding credence to Hershel's assessment of her later, stating that she is obsessed with him, and even when she tells Hershel toward the end that she'll end this one way or another, she still doesn't even clarify how she will do it. Which brings me to the highlight of this installment and the merits of this episode in general, starting with the connection between Maggie and Negan being one of the most complex and nuanced relationships in television. I think of all the duos and possible pairings to explore further in the franchise, and there are a great many that they could have done, with Rick and Michonne being the natural choice, but these two are a dynamic I never knew I fucking needed. There is so much back and forth with and without words, and the subtext is deeply rooted and subtle, and both Jeffrey Dean and Lauren fucking deliver with these characters. The psychology between the pair is fantastic, as you understand everything that's at stake and the threats lined up against them, but then you throw in the threat of them against each other. It generates an uneasiness that I can't take my eyes off. And I honestly would have been happier just seeing them try and navigate Manhattan without the assist of anybody else for that matter, constantly at loggerheads with themselves, debating whether this was a smart idea and would the ends justify the means.
He is unfocused and undisciplined.
Then we're perfect for each other.
As for the plot itself going forward with the Dama and the Croat, I am fascinated to learn about the inner workings of their grip on Manhattan and how this could possibly shape up with Negan at the helm and how this could affect his character. So there's much more to come off the back of this and more I wish to learn, but closing out here, I have many questions burning in the back of my mind, like will Ginny come back? What does this mean for Hershel? And where does Pearlie sit within this now? Ginny's relationship with Negan throughout this did wonders for his character in demonstrating how far along he's come, but to drop the bombshell that he killed her father and that he was one of Annie's attackers creates a whole world of strife for her, as she'll no doubt be questioning everything she understood about her life and the world around. She is absolutely a victim here, and I can see how she could be factored back into the story as a means to get Negan out of Manhattan, but I could also see that final scene of Maggie offering the dino toy back to her as them closing the chapter on her story for now, and that's okay. The revelation from Negan hit hard, and I truthfully couldn't tell if he was just saying this to get her out of the city or if he was being honest, but the fact that his final words to Maggie were to look out for the girl tells me he has changed, and that's something that the young lass will never know, as she never knew him before. As for the plot device of the season, Herschel is possibly the biggest ticking time bomb, as he serves as a continual threat for both our protagonists. For Negan, he's a source of pain in that for every wrong movement, Herschel is the one who suffers, and if anything else were to happen here, Maggie would seek to take this back out on Neeks, but for Maggie, her son is a source of fear created by her own actions, as Herschel doesn't seem to resent Negan anymore, but instead his mother for her fixation on him throughout his life and always treating him like a second thought, which has generated this friction between them, which means he's open to receiving support from other avenues, and that disturbingly came in the shape of the Dama, who he seemed to be chill enough with by letting her take a piece of his body, and is obsessively drawing her face in the environment he was in as a new source of comfort. He's clearly got a case of Stockholm Syndrome here, but I wonder what conditioning was placed on him to break him this much, as in the flashbacks between them earlier in the season, there was tension, but nothing to the degree of what we see here. The concern now, though, is that Maggie is alone with a son who doesn't want her, and has a degree of trust in the enemy, and might willingly give up everything around him for what he briefly felt as a sight of peace once more in this world, and it's all because Maggie couldn't see her kid, just her enemy. And finally, Paulie. This dashing gentleman has his balls strung up too, but has seemingly switched allegiances, with not only his fib regarding Negan to let him see his mission out through to the end, but the fact that his organisation, who supposedly represent a new state of order and tranquility, are desperate for anything that offers them power, quizzing him over Manhattan's fuel resources by luring him in with the mention of his family, a level you only stoop to when you want to tug on the plums and get someone to bend over backwards for you in a hostile situation. I can't tell just yet if his deceit over Negan will come back to bite him, but the realization that this organisation is just a bunch of scummy shitbags who care more for manipulation rather than peace and structure should be the turning point in his arc, and hopefully he finds a way to live peacefully, or maybe Negan can offer an assist somehow. So to wrap up here though, the structure of this series was incredible. The chemistry between Maggie and Negan is fantastic, with so much more to begin exploring now that they've endured this little escapade together, and offered stories about their past that normally act as a bonding moment for most people. Shows that they're capable of working together, and that the writers have something deeper they want to explore here, and my prediction right now is that the pair will reunite and make peace. Negan has definitively become my favourite Walking Dead character off the back of this, having shown so much progression over the course of the series, and I cannot wait to see what lies ahead for him. As for Maggie, her next step is to become a mother. She spent so long worrying about what's next that she's negated what's there, and that will become a dangerous aspect moving forward as Herschel grows up, and the longer the strain develops, the less likely she'll be able to reach him. The agency is through the roof from this, and it speaks to me that the less time the writers have with the show, the better the quality becomes. The Walking Dead was always a piece of rock that needed to be pressed, and at last we have a fucking diamond. Now all that's left is to see how this will factor into the endgame for the Walking Dead saga, and at that point it's anybody's guess, but what I can tell you right now is this franchise has without a doubt found new life, offering some of the most visually engaging backdrops, heaps of character development, intelligent screenplays, isolated but enjoyable gore, plenty of moving components to pack out a strong conclusion for the saga, and a thoroughly enjoyable spin-off that flourishes under the compact nature of it. And everything between Negan and Maggie besides the final throwdown was what I wanted from a series that offered such a reunion, and I'm left feeling optimistic for what's next in this universe. My hope now though is that they don't begin to descend into bloated waters following the success of the series, as this show proves that you can deliver a 16 episode season's worth of story into 6 50-minute features that offer all the necessary information without absurdly lengthy dialogue and overextended fight sequences. But I'll leave it here for now with the recommendation that The Walking Dead Dead City is an essential but rewarding viewing experience. So that's it from me everybody, thank you so much for tuning in each week for these reviews. If you fancy it, subscribe and stick around to see my coverage of the Daryl Dixon series in the near future, and make sure to check out any of my other works if you're interested in what's around. Leave a like on this video and hit the bell so you never miss an episode, and until next time everyone, take care, and I will see you soon.